So today's session is going to be a little interesting about the SAP business partners and what is a business partner all about. So there are two PDFs. Why there are two PDFs? Because these are different documents prepared by me. So in SAP ECC, right? You might have heard about the term ECC before. I've explained what is a ECC. So in ECC, the business partner in S4 HANA, right? Uh, you would call it as a vendor partner or a customer. Okay. So in SAP ECC, what happened was we had a different module. Okay. In those different modules, we had the uh, we have the supply chain management. In the supply chain management module, you have the customers, vendors, and you have the employee vendors, right? Employee vendors are the people that are there in the there as an employee, but they're also as a vendor. So all these kinds of vendors you have, but what's the actual impact in a business or in your clients or premise, the different people engaging? How do you maintain the proper data, like the address of that vendor? Plus, how do you maintain the information, the relevant information, which is what, which is going to be your contact details, your address, your language of the vendor, the email address. For example, I want a automated process in my business, and I want to send everyone a email copy of my PO. For example, this is my PO, right? And I want to send this PDF in the email format, right? So, for example, we're doing this, right? NACE. How do you send a NACE email? So that will be by the business partner. And what if a business partner is someone who is engaging with me as a sole party, but under his there is a different transporter. Okay, there's a different guy who is, or a good supplier who is going to give me goods, and this guy is my just the vendoring party. Vendoring party means I am just going for the invoicing for this vendor. This vendor is giving me supplies, everything, but there's a different transporter, and we agreed, mutually agreed, that this transporter is needed to be paid. How? With me, I know how to the payments work. So for that case, the business partner, the partner functions work. Okay. Earlier we had a customer or a vendor. In SAP S4 HANA, we have only business partners. We also have vendor master data, but that vendor master data is a slightly different than the business partner, right? So they are following these, all the models are following the business partner concept, right? And in this, we have the different levels. There's an organizational level of creation, there's a personal level creation, and there's a group or the personal partners creation, right? Why these categories are there? What is the use? We'll just see in a minute. So how a BP works is, uh, yesterday we did a little, I would say, end user related work. Today we'll see how that end user has to go. So we have to go to the T code called BP. It's called maintain BP, or you can go directly to BP. BP means business partner. BP is a very commonly used T code, and in this we have the groupings we of partner. What is a grouping? What's an account group? All that we'll just see. Right? There are two number ranges. One is internal, one is external. In external, you have to manually put it. Otherwise, in internal, you have to use a given number range. So why that is done? All that we'll talk about in the BP. Okay, let's log into our system. I hope the very basic is clear. Any doubts? Who has issue in the servers as of now? I am free today. You guys can connect after this call. Once the recording stop, I can help you get the servers if still the server issue is there with you guys. Okay. So we have a T code called BP. What does BP mean? BP is a business partner. It's an old concept only, but in SAP MM, it's a new introduction. So we have a lot of buttons. Why we have these buttons? What is the use? So we have two, three things here. I would like to explain that. So in order to find, how will you find? This is the find button. Business partner, person, organization, groups. But where are these here? If I want to create a person vendor, the person vendor will be created by which button? This button. If I want to create an organization, let's say I'm associated with Hinduja Group. Hinduja Group is doing what? Cement related. And I have a company called ITD Cementation Limited, and I'm doing SAP for that. Now, as a IT company, what we'll do is we'll make Hinduja Group as a ITD Cementation company's vendor into organization. If I click organization, it will lead me to this page. If I click group, it will be different, right? And it is a role based. What is a role based thing? These are different roles. In each role, you'll find a different configuration. There is two standard roles. The standard roles starts with FLVN double zero. FLVN double zero is what? Finance vendor, FI vendor, vendor financing, anything you can call it. Then this is vendor purchasing, FLVN01. Why this is called vendor purchasing is because it is having the purchase organization related data. A vendor is a master data, which is the last master data in all the entire whatever we have created by now. The last master data, which is relevant for our session. And in this, the purchasing rule is created. The order currency is done in FLVN01. In FLVN00, the finance vendor, we create the uh, company code related data. We create the reconciliation account, and that is it. So if I explain about the entire vendor concept, it is very simple to do. Here is the address tab, and then there are controls and all the relevant details. I'll do the end user part later on. If you want me to start with the end user, I can start, but there is no use without the proper number range. What is this grouping? Grouping means the particular vendor group, or this is called the vendor grouping. I'll go into the configurations also. You can have an international vendor. You can have a one-time vendor. A one-time vendor is a vendor which is used just for the uh, one-time transactions. Let's say I'm purchasing from this vendor for one time because my first vendor denied, okay, delivery, and I'll never ever purchase in the future with this. Then why to expand the vendor master data, right? So all these are your different types of vendors people have created, but we'll create a good vendor with a number range that serves and suits your business. So how will you do it? We'll go to SPRO slash n SPRO. We'll go to SAP IMG. Then we'll go where? We'll go 1 second. I think there's a background noise. So we have the 1 second. We have the BP, and just one thing I wanted to explain that is missing from my end. In BP, you have all the data related information that is role specific. Okay. And why a business partner and not keep it like a customer and the vendor? Earlier, they had the transaction codes like XD01, XK01. In the earlier years of the SAP ECC, I would call it as like 7 years before. If I use this transition, what will happen? Let me show it to you first. We went to BP directly, but we should have come here first. If I put slash n and then the transaction code, it will say what? Redirecting to transaction BP as transaction FD01 is obsolete. What does this mean? Whatever transaction codes were there, all these 6 transaction codes, vendor and customer, then there was a finance related code also. Uh, all this is now obsolete. If I put XK01 for vendor, it is again obsolete. XK01 again. What will the system say? Redirected to transition BP as the transition is now obsolete. So why this is there? Why this particular thing is there? because when you type the transaction code here, the system will say it is obsolete, because in the SAP architecture, let me draw a database. In the SAP architecture, when you talk about a database, what will happen is you will get the very basics of the the database, and in the database there are different layers, right? There are different tables. So consider this database as a table. In this table, you will have a particular set of data. In this particular set of data, what will happen is we have a person or a company can be the same company can be my buyer or my uh, vendor and my customer. Okay, he might either procure from me or he might sell it to me, or else there can be two-way relationships. So in this case, I'm storing the same information in the customer and I am storing the same information in the vendor. Then why to update? Let's say I'm a HVAC company. In HVAC company, there is a Skybird, this there is a Skybird rated company that is going to be uh, my partner. Okay, and the Skybird company, what it does is it is a stabilizer company. Basically, it manufactures stabilizers. So in order that my HVAC, my AC company, or like the Blue Star company doesn't, or the Lloyd company doesn't uh, have the burnt parts. Burnt part means in case of a high voltage, the stabilizer, what it does, it stabilizes the voltage. It's like a transformer inside that puts the current running. Okay, and it is not going to fluctuate more. If it fluctuates, the binding, the copper binding that is present in the AC will burn out, and I have to get 9,000, whatever rupees it's going to get out of my own pockets, right? So what happens in a database? We keep the footprints low. The footprints are low. Why? What does a footprint mean? A footprint in SAP, I would say, in a database means the size of the tables, right? The data of the tables should be very minimal. This is called the reduction in the footprint of the database. Why that is needed? That is needed because in SAP, when we talk about the multiple objects, vendor, be it customer, be it business partner, right? Everything should be concise. The number in should be concise. It should not create any discrepancy amongst understanding the basic concept and the on the end user also. Okay, so we have the okay. Let me close this. We have what currently we have clear orderings. Okay, great. So we have this roles in the customer and this roles in the vendor. So we have used role based, right? We have all these views. We have used it as a role based transaction. So to avoid the multiple transactions, that is why BP is able to access the vendor and the customer. We are not going to do the customer configuration, but in this document, you will find the customer documentation and the customer grouping also, which is very similar to vendor account grouping. I'm not asking you to get a knowledge of the customer account grouping, but if you do it on your own efforts, I would highly appreciate it. But I'm not going to teach the customer account group. It is a part of BP, but the consultants are not required to know. So I'll tell you what to know, what not to know. And this is an interview question. Like, what's the difference between the vendor account group and the business partner account group? I'll do the business partner in this class only, and in next 15-20 minutes. Okay. So let's get right into the vendor account group. What is a vendor account group? It is a master record of the account group which you assign to the vendor, and this define the functions in the screen and fields relevant to your business partner. How does it determine? It will tell you exactly if a number range is internal or external, because after this path, right? This is financial accounting. Why this is in financial accounting? This is not a part of finance, guys. This is a part of because it is a vendor. But the account groups is a part in the materials management. There are two configurations. One is in finance, one is the second one. This is the business partner we are going to create. The second configuration is in and we are going to define the account groups with screen layouts. So screen layouts, what does a screen layout mean? It means that you will have the number range assignments. It's either internal or external. You can define the field selection, and you can already you have a partner schema. Schema means what's how do you determine a partner schema is whatever pricing you want to do. For example, there were coal vendors. I was a SAP TSW consultant also. In TSW, I had to procure in a different pricing procedure. So when I'll show you pricing procedure, I'll tell you what a schema means and where do you assign a schema. So in normal scenarios, we take a standard schema. Okay, everywhere it's a standard schema. And this today entirely I'll tell you where the schema is assigned in the purchasing tab and how what's the meaning of this partner schema. The schema is relevant to pricing only if you assign it in the pricing master and then you assign it to the vendor. It will pick only that schema. Okay. Otherwise, whatever schema is defined in the standard, it'll take that. Then we'll create vendors. Once we are able to create vendors, we'll have the we'll go with the one-time vendor. What is a one-time vendor and what is a permanent vendor? There are two types of vendor, and let's get into the finance. Then we have accounts receivable, payable, then supplier accounts. If I go to supplier accounts, I'll create a vendor. If I go to customer accounts, I'll create a customer master. Okay, I'll show you, but I'll not go into the customer accounts. Okay, because it's a SD related data. SD we are not going to touch. Okay, great. So here we are. What we are going to do is we are going to start with the SPRO. SPRO is going to be we are going to be going to our SAP finance accounting. Why finance accounting? Because it's a part of metal master only, MM module only, but it is a part of vendor master. So we'll go to accounts receivable and accounts payable. So when you talk about accounts receivable, this is called SD. When you receive a money, when you sell something, when you sell scrap material, or when you sell a finished product from SD, it is called accounts receivable. When you procure, accounts payable, when you have to pay, it is called accounts payable. So every time you enter FI, never go to any other node, always go to finance accounting and accounts receivable and accounts payable. In this, you will get supplier accounts and customer accounts, right? If I go to customer accounts, I'll get the master data preparation for all this. I'll get the change master data, right? If I go here, it will create the customers. If I select this, I'll be able to create the customers. If I don't select this customers and I go to supplier accounts, then the master data, then the preparation for creating the supplier master data. Under this, I'll get the vendor, define the accounts group with the screen layout for vendors. If I click on the documentation, always remember this SAP documentation is very helpful if you're not able to understand anything. How this document will help you, it will define the groups for one-time vendors, for permanent vendors, what's a general data, what's a control data, everything that you need to know is here. If you start reading it on your own, you'll get a lot of details that I might have missed, but I'm trying to cover it up all. So how does this vendor account group define the field status? So what's a field status? How do you define it? All that and the changing of the number range, we'll also see that. If I execute it, you will be able to see. Okay, you'll be in the define account groups. Okay, somebody has defined this is a wrong account group. Okay, so we have different account groups. This is a standard account group and all these numbers are standard. Whatever starts with different numbers, 1 8 and DV and all that, it's a custom number range. Sorry, custom groups. So how do you define a vendor? You can either copy the vendor or you can either create your own vendor. So what I'll do is I'll make a new entry instead of copying. It's a vendor account group. So what happens in the vendor account group? What is the field status? Let's jump right in. So my vendor was Alpha. Okay, I think it's not here. Let me close this. My vendor account group be Alpha. Okay, so I'll put two account groups A, L, P. 1, or I can put ALFA, and I can put beta, BETA. So I can put two account groups, or alpha one time vendor or alpha